Well, hello and welcome to episode 2 of the River Shaman Ramblings, which, by the way, is kind of a podcast that goes with a little blog I had started called The River Shaman over at therivershaman.com. I have mulled for quite some time on what in the world I was going to talk about and when I was going to begin with nitty-gritty. Oh, it's hard. I don't know what to talk about. And some of the topics I need to address, but I don't want to address them in the wrong way. Because as I had mentioned in the introduction, there are some lines I do not want to cross. So I was looking at the blog, and the second post on the blog is a post from May 3rd called When I Did The Unthinkable. And it's talking about what event got me angry enough to stop being complacent and to just start moving forward and doing stuff. Because for a while there, I wasn't really going to do anything. I was content in dealing with the death of my parents, and then, well, I guess I'll have to give you a little backstory. A long time ago, I learned about the Mohegan language, which was a declared language of my tribe, and I noticed that although it was declared, there really wasn't much going on with it, so I had reached out to begin bringing the language back to my people, and I had gotten quite a response. One of the responses was from my older brother, and he and I ended up butting heads, but we ended up splitting over the matter, and people followed me. And then during the course of time, I started making good progress. I was making animation videos to teach the language. I was studying the language, and well, then I started to get very sick, and I had already had trouble, say, holding jobs and stuff because I was always mysteriously sick, but it began to progress a lot more over time to the point that there was one point in the hospital I went in and only had 4 hours left to live. This really kind of affects your ability to study a language, like by just a little bit, like tons. Things ground to a halt. For a while there, I was so sick I couldn't even get up. I'm not kidding when I say there came a point in time when they had sent a home nurse to my home, and that nurse talked to me about just being willing to euthanize myself. Apparently, it was better to not be a burden than to struggle to survive. That's a whole podcast right there. We don't need to go there right now. I knew that my brother was also studying, and he had went the brain way. He wanted to do all of the science talk and the linguistic talk, but people are turned off like that, which I had told him years ago. I started picking up the pieces again and rebuilding and going back and doing the Mohegan and sending the tribe notices and everything that I was picking back up again. During the time, I had even come across an article where it was talking about me and how I was single-handedly trying to save the language somehow. I'm sure there were others, but I guess I was the only one that was in the public for the matter. I had MoheganLanguage.com. That was through WordPress, which, by the way, was a mistake. It was very limited, and I was not able to do a lot there. One day, I'm also a musician, and I was part of a project to go to a folk musician whose name was Leslie Fish over in Arizona to record her unrecorded songs, just kind of archival to make sure that they weren't lost. And while I was there, I got an email from my brother telling me how he had just suddenly magically decided to start doing Mohegan language. Now, mind you, this is years after he had started studying. And he's telling me all of a sudden, magically, he had just started. I responded and got no response. Then I got another email. I forget what it said, but I responded and telling him, he was talking about how some of the syntax didn't make sense. And I had responded, well, that's because of this and this cultural thing. No response. And then within 24 hours, I get another email from him. Well, you're not responding to me. I haven't heard from you ever at all. So I'm just going to do the thing. This really, really made me mad. This was a big betrayal. To be quite honest, it was not out of character, and I knew it. There's reasons why I don't speak to a lot of my family, as has been alluded in the last podcast. And I really got angry. So when I got back from Arizona, I buckled down more and sent the tribe another letter. This is what's going on. I understand that I was very sick, but this is what's going on. And someone with the tribe finally had the cojones, the eggs, to tell me that for quite some time now, one of the other members had been going to college for linguistics, and they had been setting things up, and they had gotten with the Mohegan Nation, and basically they had done a lot of stuff without really letting me know that I was wasting my time. That really hurt. That hurt a lot to be betrayed that way, because it's a lot of time and energy and money and effort, and you don't feel appreciated. And so then I overreacted on my language website. And then when I came down from being so angry and hurt, I mean, not that I'm not still hurt, because let's face it, it could have been handled better. But I mean, during that time, I had people taking me aside for interventions. I had reprinted a songbook that was very important to my people and had been told that I didn't know what I was doing. Guys, I have a publishing company. I know when people are talking behind my back, and I know from things like, when my brother was in prison, I actually got to read the letters that he and my mother exchanged putting me down. So I know where some of the talk comes from, and I'm not saying all of it, but there's a tendency with people when they see that someone else might do a good job of something they feel they want to do instead, to put that person down, tell people that they're stupid. You see this in politics a lot, and I'm very fond of saying that when you're Native American, you're a natural-born politician, because you're born straight into it. You don't have a chance. You don't get to live a peaceful life. You have to start fighting for your right on everything immediately, it seems like. I tried to swallow it for his sake anyway, because I had to accept that, yes, I had gotten too sick to carry on the project alone. I couldn't do it alone. I couldn't get people to participate. God knows I had tried numerous times. His husband has money. He has lots of money. I did not, and he had went further. I refused to participate in what he had written, being as he had admitted to me that he had been pulling words from other languages to fill in gaps for some of the language had been blocked, and he had also told me that he was naming the language. His was going to be called Rabbit Mohegan, because rabbit is a trickster. These are red flags, my friends. And there's a lot more I could say about this and how I have been treated, and the fact that my own brother, whom I used to really, really adore, would carry on what had been carried on from our elders, just lets you know that when you tend to ostracize a child or put down a child, understand that your children are watching, and and their cousins, and everyone is watching, and chances are really high they're going to carry on that treatment. Being mindful is probably one of the best ways to heal your family, I think. It doesn't mean you have to overreact. I've seen a lot of families that have overreacted, and to the point where we can't even say the word this or that or breathe. And then I've watched those children become toddlers and then young children, and they're ruling the household, which is not a healthy house either. My cats have decided that it's time to use the litter box. This might be a statement about what I'm talking about. So if you're hearing that in the background, that's what's going on. So I knew what was coming, because sadly my brother has developed some bad habits. And it was coming out that I knew that he had been working for this whole time. After all, he had shared things with me on occasion. I knew. I'm not stupid. And it came out in conversation, and he's getting more and more angsty, and I'm seeing what's going to happen. And so I tried little things like trying to play down, look, you've been doing this all this time, and there's no sense in lying to me about it, really. I didn't say that, but that's what I'm thinking. Oh, what did I say? I suggested he go take a nap. That was probably a little mean. There's a few mean things I said. I actually posted what I had to say on one of my blogs because I was so upset, and he did exactly what I knew he was doing. He reacted with a temper tantrum back at me. I wanted to do something meaningful before I died. People, my brother has written several Cherokee language books and done a lot for the Cherokee of Georgia, because he and my parents joined the Cherokee of Georgia. He had done a lot. When my parents passed away, he insisted we donate a lot that I would rather not have lost. The only reason why I inherited the pipes that my parents have, traditionally, is because the clan mother told my brother that no, we would not be splitting up the pipes and putting one in a museum and only letting me have one, because you don't split up the male and female pipes. You name it. I mean, this is just the story of my life. I'll be honest, it stems mostly from my mother, and that's a whole nother podcast that I will absolutely need to address. But the point is, he got to that point, and I never, ever, ever in my entire life ever lashed back at my brother and told him exactly what I was thinking until that day. And what I mean is, I still edited what I had to say because I didn't want to get too mean, but enough was enough. I had been stripped of everything. I had actually been ostracized from the family over my mother's fantasies, whims, and dreams and other bullshit. So I had had time with my parents and my family stripped from me. And when I had come home, and as the filial daughter, I ended up being the one caring for my mother in her past days. And when the hospital said she was going to die, everybody that didn't want me around, and my aunt who had told me no one liked me, and all these things, all of a sudden everybody's handing the reins to me and leaving me with the responsibility of being the one to essentially pull the plug. That's a terrible, terrible weight to bear. So I've got my brother acting up at me in email, claiming how he wants to do something meaningful before he passes, after he's already done a lot of meaningful stuff, after stripping me of the only thing I had left. I'm sorry, you can call that what you want, but actions speak louder than words. It had nothing to do with leaving something meaningful. It had everything to do with getting the attention. And I'm not the only one to note this. Sometimes I rely on other people to make these observations for me because I worry that my ego is getting in the way, so I often will stand back. So this post is called When I Did the Unthinkable. Because standing up for myself, my mother had told me most of my life, was unthinkable. And every time I would lose my temper or stand up for something, she hated it. My fiery spirit was not acceptable. So I'm going to go through it as this episode. Hopefully I can glean some stuff out of it to share with you. I'm reading now. I thought I'd start off by talking about the event that got me going on this journey of mine. I'm not making it a secret that my older brother pissed me off, as I have explained. And when I get truly pissed off, I tend to start moving diagonally across boards. But I have to get to that level of angry first. And this is true. You have to truly make me angry. I can get frustrated. And one thing I've noticed about society today is people have lost the ability to tell frustration apart from anger. And sometimes people use anger as an excuse to shut someone down when that person's really just being frustrated, because there is a driving need to keep us from going there. But you need your anger, and you need to learn how to control your anger, and you need to learn to harness your anger. And most importantly, you need to embrace that if something's making you angry, it's okay that you're angry, because your anger can give you power, which is what happened here. My anger, I allowed it to give me power. So yeah, it takes me a lot to get there. People will often mistake someone being frustrated as angry, as I had said. And there are a great many times I have been accused of being angry when I was simply emotionally excited in some way. Anger is something else. It's a very powerful, and if left unchecked, can become a very dangerous thing. There are degrees to it, the anger. You have the hot fire of anger. That's the part where a lot of us will shout, overreact. It can be pyroclastic. It can go boom, and you might throw a bowl, or you might need to go off and punch a tree. That kind of anger will burn out. It turns into ashes and it fades away. And then a year later, you might not even remember what you were angry about. Mix that kind of anger with other feelings like betrayal, for example, off the top of my head, or some other hurt or trauma, and then you're probably going to get a different kind of fire. This is the kind of fire you want in a kiln. You want to burn it, even it, control it, shape it, keep it even and careful. Betrayal anger, it can be a very harmful anger, and it can cause you to lash out in revenge. That's not the right way sometimes, most of the time actually. But with this kind of anger, if in the kiln, the embers will linger, and it won't gobble up its fuel inside of you the way that flash lava anger I earlier described will do. It's a slow, strong anger, and even the best reasoning about it may not make it go away. It runs deep. You have been hurt. It is down in the wounds. Those lava flows are going all through you, and if you don't know how to handle it and what to do with it, it will eat you alive. So let me tell you something about emotions. And this is something I noticed on my own. It's not something my father taught me. For point of reference, when it comes to the metaphysical, most of what I know was stuff that my father had handed to me. And I can tell you about that style of teaching another day. So yes, my father never taught me this, but I'd often seen him use the theory of this emotion, theory that I'm going to talk about. In all things, you must have balance. You're much better when you're balanced, so that the kind of even negative feelings, you can handle them, because you're able to keep your heart and mind in a safe, sacred space. So yes, balancing your emotions includes your heart and mind. Your mind is the recipe book for all the things you do. It has all of the technical information. It's a roadmap. It has lists of instructions. It has ways for you to think. Well, what's really interesting about anger, though, is if anger starts to take control of you, the blood vessels in your brain will constrict and it actually impairs thinking, which is another reason why learning to control your anger is really beneficial, because this sword, this gun, I don't even have a word for the power of anger that fits. It still has to have a heavy hand on it. So your mind will guide you. And it's your heart that feels everything. Your heart is that is storing the hurt. Your heart is where the pain and the anger and the reactions and the emotions are coming from. Without your heart, though, you have no ambition. That career you worked on your entire life for will become meaningless because your heart isn't in it. That's why they say, well, my heart isn't in it. I've lost all meaning. It's just not there. Your heart is the house of your soul. And your emotions are what help keep your blood pumping. You know, when your heart gets pumping, that blood goes, and that can be good for you. There are religions like Buddhism, which I did look into briefly, that's like, oh, get yourself in peace, always do peace, always do peace. And I don't see that as something you should do 24/7, because there are times that you need to rise up fighting. I have come to believe that no, you've just got to know when to choose your battles and how to wield your weapons. Emotions are good, and I do mean all of them. They teach us right from wrong. They warn us when we're in danger. You're around someone, they've presented some red flags, and you're not feeling very good about them. It's your emotions and, coupling with your brain. Deet, I have this information, and I'm making you feel uncomfortable. Your instincts are telling you you're in danger. That is a coupling of emotion with your brain. And, there's been this push, especially since I was a teenager, to drive anger out of our emotional spectrum as if it were something unnatural and only allow love. And I'm here to tell you from experience that love can get you into just as much trouble, if not more, than anger. Oh, yeah, you can make some stupid decisions when you're in love. God knows I've ruined my life I don't know how many times because love. I don't think I wised up until I was in my 40s. I've gotten into more trouble over love than anger, I can tell you that much. There's also been a push lately to get rid of what people are calling the reptilian mind and go only for the heart, because don't you know the heart knows if it feels good, do it. Who cares if you're going to get AIDS? No, that's just as imbalanced because you're throwing out both halves of yourselves. We are sentient thinking creatures. And when you only go with the heart, you're basically, well, let's face it, animals go by their heart. I have a couple of my animals will think a little bit, but overall they're going to go with what their heart says. And when you go only for the mind, then you're throwing out the heart. And that's damning yourself to a black and white existence. To basically put it that way, we either gut our emotions and make ourselves somehow less than whole, or we gut our mind and once again somehow stand less than whole. There's no balance in either approach. There just isn't. In fact, both of these approaches make us weaker. If we were horses and these items were our legs, we'd be left with only 3 legs because you're cutting off one of the legs. You can walk, but not as well, and running from predators would be a real bitch. Yeah. You learn to keep your emotions in check enough that they don't tell your mind what to think, while you keep your mind in check enough not to tell your heart how to feel. And I've been working at it. I'm not very good at it. I probably have several lifetimes worth of practice on it, but I'm trying. And I have to say that since I really started making an effort in this, really started making an effort in this, stupid decisions have went down the tubes by mostly I still make stupid decisions. And my life has definitely been better. I'd say that working on this emotional and mental balance has improved my well-being a lot. It has definitely made a difference. Part of the way I have managed to balance myself is by creating a quiet space full of creativity and not having, say, the television running all of the time. It isn't that I don't keep up with the news. I do, even though some of it can be pretty upsetting. You do need to know what's going on in the world at large, but you also need to be mindful of your environment. And that's probably the biggest step that I took. I play music. I'm not a very good musician, but I'm a folk musician. And when I'm upset, I have come to notice playing music and engaging that part of my mind and playing happy music or even sad music really, really helps. It helps to distance you while you work some stuff out. So yes, guys, howling at the moon can be a nice therapeutic activity as long as you don't wallow, because I used to be such a wallower. Oh my gosh, did I wallow? Thank God I no longer wallow and outgrew that. When I realized that wallowing just made you feel worse, it was like, I have stabbed my thumb with a thumbtack. Oh, that hurts. I think I'll go wallow in a pool of them now. When I just learned how to pull out the thumbtack, and yeah, it hurts, and I might suck on that pain a little bit and then carry on. And if it still hurts later, I might suck on it some more. But wallowing is a whole nother activity. I see so many people in my Facebook feed, they wallow, and they can't understand why their lives aren't any better. It's like, I get that a life's hard from you. I've been there, done that. I have, but and I'm not saying that what you're going through isn't bad. It probably is. It has to be. But there's a practice of counting your blessings and finding good things in your life so that when you take some time during these bad things to do good things in your life, it is probably the best medicine I have ever taken. Now, if you are someone who suffers depression and that's just not enough for you and you need actual help with medication, like one of my best friends, that's a given that you're going to need external help. But there has been an epidemic of people that have forgotten how to take joy in their lives. Just recently, there was a rash on TikTok of people who, for whatever circumstance, had started doing what I do, taking quiet time or taking walks, which I used to do before the dogs stopped, because my neighbor's dogs are always out and they will bite you. They're like, wow, I feel so much better because I took this mindful approach for 1 hour a day. Clearly, since these young people are discovering this like it's a new discovery by Einstein, that it's something that we as a society on whole have forgotten. So I'm here to say, yes, me time is okay. Too much me time, anything in excess is bad. I've seen people who are like, well, I need me time, so I'm just going to abandon you for a week and go to hell. But a little bit of me time, how it used to be, I don't know if any of you remember the old Calgon commercials. Calgon, take me away, because the mother was just too stressed. And so she goes and she takes a nice Calgon bath. She has some time in that bath to herself and she comes out feeling better. Let me tell you, I have done that. It is true. I want a hot tub so badly. But moving on. I feel that when you balance your mind and heart, you're also balancing your soul. It's almost as if your heart and mind are an ocean and a boat. The heart is the water, after all, waters of life, and the waters of the soul. And then the mind is the boat. It is the hard, tactile thing. And your soul is riding in that boat. When you calm the heart, your boat will be calmed. But if you calm it too much, your boat's not going to sail anymore. And that's why you still want the river flowing. You keep your emotions running as long as you can keep them in check. And the boat will glide very serenely on that river. And there might be some choppy waters once in a while. You might deal with something like I did when my parents died or your dog dies. I mean, that's pretty big upheaval. As long as you're able and reasonably balanced, the chops don't normally get too big so that your soul can ride comfortably. If it gets too big, your soul is hanging over the side of the boat, puking out its guts. Now, how fun is that? Seasickness sucks, people. Let's face it, seasickness is the worst. I did a web search really quick through Google to see if there was an article or something about balancing the heart and mind. I wanted to find ways that you can apply balancing your heart and mind and basically bringing some inner peace into your life beyond the things that I have tried to do. I have found the following steps that I hope will help. One of them is consider therapy. And the truth is, if nothing else is working, you may indeed need some outside help, let's face it. And I am not your outside help. I am just someone who's probably in the similar boat as yours that's muddling through every day. One of the things is to take a break, which is kind of like the Calgon take me away thing I told you about, the taking a little bit of me time, finding a quiet place, your bathtub, your hot tub, or even just in your bedroom. It doesn't have to be a bath, but let's face it, getting clean too is kind of nice because that's a kind of a morality booster, and doing some of that kind of self-care can also boost your ego a little bit, because we all need a little bit of ego in our lives. When your ego is too low, like mine was most of my life, well, that's going to throw you out of balance and you're going to get taken advantage of. So find a quiet space, close your eyes, take a few deep breaths, which kind of leads into practicing meditation. And what it really is you're going, you know what they say, good air in, bad air out. You're doing a practice to get your body to focus on something other than, oh my God, the taxes are due. It's like, the taxes are due. Okay, the taxes are due. So you take a break. Exercise is another something that I had found. Now, I have not been exercising the past couple of years. I got sick again, and then I let myself go, and I should be so ashamed. I have been telling myself when I get up every day, oh, okay, today is the day I'm going back to the exercise routine. And then I end up sitting here and recording a podcast. But yes, regular physical activity does indeed improve your mood. I've always found that, yes, it can help. It's also a stress relief. And if you're doing really, really active stuff, you're actually going to be relieving some stress. It's good for you. Let's face it. There's a reason why they say at least 20 minutes a day. It used to be at least an hour a day, then they lowered to 30. Now they're saying 20. I think they're bargaining with us to try to get us off those couches, to be quite honest. That was something I discovered many years ago. I had problem children. My God, I couldn't go into town with them without them, because they had discovered getting me into trouble was easy in public because people don't mind their own business. There was a yoga program that would come on in the morning, and I would do it before going to work. And when I started doing it, the first thing I noticed was how wonderful my days suddenly were. They weren't half as stressful. It was the most amazing thing. So I really got into yoga for a while because I discovered, wow, this is amazing. Not only am I starting to become more limber and a little bit more strong and have more energy, but I'm not wanting to kill everybody, metaphorically. They say practice meditation as well is a way, which kind of goes back to taking a break as far as I'm concerned, because in order to practice meditation, it's helpful that you find a quiet space. And it's kind of a me time thing. In my not very celebrated opinion, taking a break and practicing meditation kind of go hand in hand. They say be more open, purposeful, and trusting of your instincts. Yes, that can help out a lot, unless you're like me and everything is going to eat you, and that's a self-call. Practice self-compassion. Be easy on yourself. Now, that one's also one that needs to be taken easily. I have met people who were being so easy on themselves, they had decided that self-care to just brush their hair and put it up before they go to the store was, well, no, it's not a social obligation, but my God, they felt terrible about themselves all the time. And when you tried to encourage them, hey, just this one little thing, this one little bit of self-care, they would give you this, why should I go with society's norms? I should not be forced to care about myself and try to be beautiful, blah, blah, blah. Reduce stress. Try to reduce stress in your life. Quit your job. Go out in the woods and live in the woods and hunt for a living and starve. Obviously, that's another one that goes hand in hand with me time, because when you take that me time, you are actually reducing stress in your life and taking a moment to allow your body to relax from being stressed, which is very important. It seems to me that so far in the list I have found, everything just kind of goes back to taking a little bit of me time. Mind you, some people, well, my me time is playing video games. Now, I'm not saying that playing those video games aren't a good me time, but I have to question if you're going to take that kind of me time just to have fun. I do it too. I play EverQuest too. I have a character I run around. But the meditation part, the quiet part, the important part about taking the me time, in my opinion, and that I have found and I have noticed around me, is taking that quiet time. Your body needs a break. Playing the video games is a lot of flashy colors and stimulation. You're stimulating a whole lot of centers in your brain. That is not taking quiet time and taking a rest. And that is why when it comes to the meditation, peaceful, causing me time, I personally would say, video games ain't it. Not saying don't play them. Go have fun. Don't rely on them to be your take a break meditation balancing act. At least I don't think you should. And again, I'm not a professional. So yeah, I'm looking at this list and everything just kind of goes back to go find a quiet space and take some time for you. I approve of this message. As someone who has been doing that for 20 years, I can say it really works. It really, really works. I used to be someone that was a mess. I have had suicide attempts. Not anymore, thank you very much. And whenever I start to feel upset over memories, because they do come into my mind on occasion, switching to something helpful and healthy is great. I have tried video games to get away from that. It just increases it. After all, I'm being violent online, remembering very unhappy things. It doesn't mix well. It's kind of like, I think I'll go get drunk when I'm an angry drunk and I'm upset over this thing that has me angry. I just don't see the benefit in that. But again, that's my personal opinion. To wrap up, when I did the unthinkable and I got angry and had enough of being pushed around, I'm still hurt and angry over it. Understand, I don't think I'm going to stop being hurt and angry for a very, very long time. I definitely will, to my best attempt, never allow myself to be in a vulnerable position around my brother and his husband ever again. I mean, there are so many things about how I was treated, how I ended up having to stand up for myself at my parents' funeral to my brother-in-law and let him know that no, he does not order me around. Little things like that. It's to the point that I don't think I would even go to my older brother's funeral. It's too dangerous of a position. Now, people are like, well, you should go to the funeral. I'm sorry, but why? Why should I go to the funeral of someone who made me cry? To be quite honest. And knowing that I would be walking into a situation where I would once again be treated like a piece of dirt, to the point that possibly yet another funeral director would take me aside and express how appalled they are at how I was getting treated. I'm not sure that going to a funeral, knowing you're walking into that, is a wise thing to do. I did it for my parents because I am a filial daughter, but I do not have to be a filial sister to that extent. The fact that I had grown enough to be able to take my anger and turn it around so that I could be strong against what has happened to me. Now that I'm assessing it and recording this episode, you know what? I feel kind of good about that, to realize that I have gained some strength that way. What I ended up doing was reaching out to quite a few linguistic professionals, and I switched my language focus. What I learned studying Mohegan is really helpful with this new language focus. But the difference is the language I have chosen now isn't a dead language. And it doesn't have to be completed, and it doesn't have to have words ripped out of other languages or made up or educational guessing. Linguists, they do what they can, and they have far more training than I do with my piddly little bachelor's. And I like the direction I got pushed. So in a way, you could say that the cosmos took my brother's negativity to push me in the direction I needed to go. So I'm very happy with that. I have learned a lot more about my family through it. A lot of really cool, awesome things. It was because of that and me having to repair things that I wasn't allowed that I learned that I was from a medicine line, for example. And that was just a really, really big deal to me to learn that, oh, I'm this way because I'm this way. So when I did the unthinkable and stood up for myself and said enough was enough, my world really, really started to turn in a direction that was good. That is turning out to be quite healthy. It doesn't mean that I don't stop crying at night sometimes. It doesn't mean that I don't stop being angry. And it certainly doesn't mean that I don't recognize that I will never feel safe around my brother again. But it's still a really good thing, to the point that I have dreams. This is a family thing. My father, he told me once he used to get paid from the government for his dreams. And the dream I had was I was in my basement and I stepped out of my office, which is where I'm sitting right now. It's a finished basement, and I walked out into the big part where the stairwell is. It's got like a bar and stuff. It's in very bad disrepair. I need money. And the ceiling in real life is just a solid white. It's just your solid typical ceiling that some people will put the popcorn texture on. But somehow the ceiling had changed and it had these squares, like kind of almost like what you see in a hospital. There used to be a big hole. There is a hole in the ceiling where people had put in our dishwasher wrong and it had eaten through the ceiling. And that wasn't there. And I was talking to this redheaded girl. I don't know who she was, but she was talking to me. She was standing off to my right. She was elevated above me somehow. It's almost like she was floating, but almost like she was walking on stuff. I can't describe it. She was elevated higher than me by maybe 2.5 feet. I walk out just into the big room enough to look up because it was raining in the dream. It was really raining hard. And I look up and all of this water is just pouring through the cracks around the tiles. It's just pouring like somebody had turned on a lot of faucets or there was a waterfall or something. And I just kind of stood there and looked at the water and I said, look at all that rainwater falling through. But it wasn't hitting the floor. I did wonder if the basement was going to flood. This basement can flood on occasion if you're not careful. But the water wasn't hitting the ground. My feet were not wet. I didn't look down and see a whole lot of water. I was just like, oh, look at that. And it was beautiful, clear water. It looked like you could almost drink from it. When I woke up the next day, I'm like, okay, this was clearly one of my prophecy dreams because, they always have a different feeling than a regular dream. But I couldn't dope out what in the world that would mean. My dreams tend to be really highly metaphorical, and they'll also have time markers in them, which is to say that they will, if there's a specific time it's going to be set, then there will be something to tell me this event is going to happen and then this. I couldn't dope out why there was all this water coming through my ceiling. All right, I'll turn to the great and almighty powerful internet. According to the internet, the great oracle of the computer gods, that dream meant that great blessings are pouring down to me from above. And I thought, wow, that's not what I was expecting to find. There were a couple of interpretations talking about how it means a bad thing. But the way I look at it, if it was a bad thing, there would have been a lot of bad stuff happening. But instead, I was just casually observing, oh, my, nice. Oh, look at the water. Lovely weather, darling. Lovely weather today. Lovely weather. Like a duck quacking in the rain. When I did the unthinkable, I think is when my life took a turn and I opened up my life to getting great blessings. All because I had had enough and I stood up for myself. And I'm pretty sure my mother was very upset about that. I'm pretty sure she would have been rolling in her grave, but my parents didn't get to have graves. And that's another story for another day. I hope that my very rambling, chaotic journey on this and balancing heart and mind will help you and help you to open up your life to such blessings. At least most of us are due some blessings. And it's time that we opened up our lives to get them. Don't you think?